The Battles of Beleriand is a mini-documentary series that covers the great battles which shaped the fate of Arda's mythic First Age, the consequences of which would be felt throughout the history of Middle-earth for the next 6 millennia. Every episode features a brief rundown of the context and aftermath of each major conflict, and includes a real-time reenactment of the battle created by the Silmarillion Total War community. The year is 1495 of the Years of the Trees. Melkor, the first Dark Lord, slew the two trees Telperion and Lorelin with the aid of the great spider Ungoliant. Together, they stole the Silmarils from the hoard of their creator, Feanor, greatest of the Noldor, from his fortress at Formenelos, slaying Finwë, High King and father of Feanor in the process. This act earned him the name Morgoth, meaning the black foe of the world, by which he would ever after be known amongst the peoples of Middle-earth. After making good his escape from Valinor, the Dark Lord landed in Middle-earth. Morgoth took up his seat at his ancient outpost of Angband, and raised up the peaks of Thangorodrim in the Iron Mountains in defense of his fortress. In the long epochs since he had been absent, his servants had not been idle. Sauron and Gothmog remained unaccounted for after the destruction of his original stronghold of Utumno, and the foul race of the orcs had multiplied unhindered in the deeps of Angband. His legions were ready, and eagerly awaited to be unleashed upon the rich lands of the south. Arrayed against Morgoth were the Sindar of Doriath, the Lyquendi or Green Elves of Osiriand, and the Falathrim, who inhabited the coastal lands to the southwest. However, even though the elves were numerous throughout the starlit lands of Beleriand, they lived mostly in scattered communes, far from the centralized power of Doriath or the havens of the Falathrim. For many of the Firstborn, the coming conflict would be their first taste of war, and the suffering Morgoth would bring to Middle-earth. 20 years later, in the reckoning of the Years of the Sun, in 1497, Morgoth was ready to launch an assault upon all of Beleriand. Drums beat beneath the depths of the Iron Mountains, and the iron-shod legions of Angband issued forth to war. Morgoth split his army into two hosts, sending powerful hosts through the pass of Sirion to the west, to assail the Philothrim, while simultaneously sending a force through the eastern pass of Aglon in order to cut off and isolate the Sindar from the Lyquendi. This week's episode will focus on the conflict in the west between the Philothrim and the orcs of Angband. Círdan and his people sallied forth to meet Morgoth's armies in the field, rather than endure a long and grueling siege which they were unlikely to win. Unfortunately, the heavily outnumbered elves were defeated and driven back into their havens, and besieged despite their valiant efforts. The siege of the havens would later be lifted with the unlooked-for return of the Noldor into Beleriand, which would throw Morgoth into a panic and force him to lift the siege and redirect his western army against Feanor and his host. Unfortunately for Morgoth, this army would be ambushed at Eithel Siron by Maedhros and his brothers, surrounded and subsequently destroyed to the last man. Today, however, is a second chance at life for the Philothrim, 2 versus 3, created by the Silmarillion Total War community for your enjoyment. And here we have the host of the Falas arranged for war. It is a mighty host, but it certainly does pale in comparison to the massive numbers arrayed against them. We've got 3 Angband armies facing down 2 Falas armies today. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of their army compositions in more detail, and then we can jump into this battle. The first Angband army we have here is commanded by Uruk. He's got Ironshot Ravagers to the tune of 2 units of them. He's got the most quality heavy army for certain, and this is going to make up the Angband center. Guardians of the Iron Crown here on his 4th line. Ironshod Legionaries on the 3rd, backing up some of the Ravagers. We've got Wretches on the 2nd line to back up some of the Ironshod Halberdiers. And the Halberdiers are important in this fight. They are very much a equalizing tool in the face of far superior elven quality. The orcs definitely want to hold on to their Halberdiers, and it's going to be really important for dealing with some of the pole arms on the Falas side of things as well. So, quite a scary army. We've got some Reavers here as well, a little bit more attack focused than the Legionnaire counterparts. We've got some higher charge bonuses as well, but they do lack in melee defense. And then finally, 2 companies here, the Spear Guard. Spear Guard of the Iron Crown. The Iron Crown units are about the best that Angband can put into the field, aside from some of the Fallen Maiar and the large monsters. Moving on over here, this is going to be the Angband right wing. We've got 3 units of Troll Guard under the command of DF King Amar. He's also got Wretches of Angband, low-tier spear unit. As their name would suggest, they are kind of the bottom of the hierarchy within the Iron Mountains. Got some Guardians of the Iron Crown here as well. 2 companies of them, I believe. At least 2. Got some Spear Guard, Arbalists. As their name would suggest, they are crossbowmen. A very deadly unit, but quite limited in their ammunition. And here, we have the Bulldogs. Fallen Maiar, forced to inhabit the monstrous form of an Orcish chieftain. They're not happy about being confined to this material plane, and they certainly take it out on the hides of their enemies. You can see they've already managed to sink their claws into a few dwarves, and they've hung them from the racks to their back, which are actually nailed into their flesh with iron rivets. So they are constantly in pain and constantly angry. Got some Ironshot Arbalists here. Wolf Riders of Angband. Some more Guardians of the Iron Crown. Yet more Guardians. A big old line of Guardians here. The Guardians are Macemen. Quite powerful against heavily armored units, of which the Falas actually have quite a lot here today. Normally they don't field too many of them, but this is a scenario. And we've got a Guardian detachment here, a half-strength unit of Guardians for half price. Backing up some Wolf Riders, some Wretches, and some more Spear Guard. I think these are from... yeah, these are all from the same army. So a lot of quality here on the center and the right wing. Whereas their left wing is largely cannon fodder. There are some detachments of more important units in here, but for the most part it consists of Legionnaires, Spear Guard of the Iron Crown, Wretches of Angband, who will not stand very long in protracted combat against the Elves. Got some more Legionaries here, and they're mixed in with a even smaller detachment of Guardians of the Iron Crown. I believe that's just a custom unit size for the scenario. Arbalists, detachment of them. Got some Bulldogs here for Artorius, who is actually our lead tester. He's going to be playing with the smaller army today. Got some detachments of Halberds, more Iron Crown detachments, some Halberd detachments. Largely a lot of fodder units, aside from the Bulldogs, and another unit here of the Troll Guard of Gothmog, the personal retinue of the Captain of Angband himself. Currently, Gothmog does not have his own model, but I can assure you that he will get one. And I know that it's going to be awesome, because it's been worked on right now, and I've had a chance to see it. I won't spoil it for you. In fact, I've been asked not to. I've got a bit of a big mouth, so I'll be keeping my gob shut on that one for the time being. But you'll certainly be hearing more about Gothmog when we get a little bit closer to Gondolin's release. But I digress. Let's take a look at the Elves of the Falas here. This army commanded by Stewart of Dale. He's got the Scouts of Eglarest. They are medium, high-tier melee cavalry. They ain't no joke in close quarters, but they don't have a lot of armor. And their shield value it's pretty decent. We got some medium infantry here as well. Some warriors of Eglarest. Normally you can only bring 2 of them, but you're going to see quite a lot of them on the field today. And we have the Arain Ephedun, the personal retinue of Círdan himself, the Lord of the Falas. Again, Círdan doesn't currently have his own model. We've got a little generic model here that we're using for the time being, but he will eventually have one. Got some Marksmen of Balar, heavy archers, quite expensive, but this is a scenario, so you don't got to worry about that. 2 units of them. His second line here consists of some light Brythombar units drawn from one of the Falas power bases on the coastline. If you're wondering why they look so dirty, that's because we have a weather effects mod, so they won't look like this. And I'm actually going to be removing it eventually, so you'll just get to see them in their pristine shape unless you're fighting in snow or in sand, but the dirt will definitely be going. But the Marines of Brythombar are light infantry. They've got a non-armor piercing javelin, as they are more of an infantry, a close quarter CQB focused unit. But the large volume of fire can be extremely deadly against halberdiers. Got some warriors of Eglarest here backed up with nobles of Balar, another heavy infantry unit. They are not pikes, they are 2-handed spears. And they are fantastic at dealing damage from the front. Their spear wall formation is a serious force multiplier that cannot be understated. Out in front of Stewart Dale's army, you got 2 detachments of Rangers of Brythombar, so half-strength units here, of the light ranger units from Brythombar. Got some warriors of Eglarest as well, and of course, we can't skip over the Mariners of Eärendil. For those Warhammer fans out there, this is analogous to a regiment of renown. Silmarillion will have many of these. In fact, currently we have 3 with a 4th one on its way. These guys do a lot of things well. I do have a video explaining them, so I won't go into detail here. Moving over this direction, got some more nobles of Balar backed up with the medium infantry from Eglarest. And we're going to move into the second host of the Falas. This one being commanded by Captain Gervais. We're going to go a little bit faster here because Angband is almost on their way. Out front, Captain Gervais has 3 units of the Marksmen of Balar, those heavy archers. His center is composed of much of the same as Stewart of Dale's army. 3 units of the warriors of Eglarest, backed up with a couple companies of the nobles of Balar. A sturdy front line indeed. Very typical to see mixed front lines like this in competitive multiplayer games, and this is certainly one of those. So the warriors of Eglarest here. Another line of Marines of Brythombar, light infantry. The Marines of Eglarest, however, are a hybrid spear unit. They are a dedicated skirmisher, so these missiles are armor-piercing, and they pack a serious punch, and they're going to be very much needed against the heavily armored Angband forces. Up front here, we have the Arain Galen. Can't remember what the name means in Sindarin, but this is a 1 HP bodyguard unit, unlike the Arain Ephedun. However, one of the important things to note about the Falas units is that they have very powerful Inspire effects, and the Arain Galen are no exception. They give +4 morale in a 30-meter radius, whereas I believe he also has a company, and indeed he does, of the Arain Ephedun, and they give 7 morale in, I think, a 50-meter radius, so extremely important for keeping the Falas units in line. They've got a lot of mid-tiers, and their mid-tiers are a little bit lower on morale than the Noldor units. Got some Marines of Brythombar over here as well. And then Rex disposes of 2 units of cavalry. You get 1 unit of Scouts of Eglarest over there, and then another unit of them right here in the center. And they're going to be important in this battle, so keep your eye on them. We're going to go ahead and fast forward just a little bit here until both sides are on the verge of clashing. So I'll see you guys in just a few moments. And so the army here from Artorius has begun to move forward with some of the skirmishers. They're trying to use this hill advantage here to pop off a few shots, probably at some high priority targets. The Arain Galen, I would imagine, are going to be what they'll go after if they have the opportunity. Their heavy armor and their heavy shields is not too much in the face of high damage, armor-piercing missiles, both of which serve to negate essentially every single defensive stat that they have. It'll bypass melee defense entirely and have their armor and shield scores as well. So very scary. You can see them moving forward, and I don't think Steward of Dale is going to let him have it all his own way. So we're going to see a sally forth here by the Eglares cavalry. Artorias is going to see it. It's very obviously telegraphed move. But the Wretches of Angband are not going to let them have this. And unfortunately the scouts here are going to charge headlong into the Wretches. At the very least the Wretches will not get their braced bonus. But with the addition of the Trolls, Steward of Dale is going to want to pull these guys out of there as quickly as he can. And it doesn't look like he managed to kill more than maybe 3 or 4 of the Arbalists at most. And in exchange they lost about a fifth of their fighting strength. Definitely a punishing mistake here from Steward of Dale. It's a lot of dead cavalry. And great response there on the part of Artorias. He knew exactly what he needed to do and when he needed to do it. Looks like those Arbalists are popping off shots. I think they're going to go after the Ard Galen, although they may just have to go after whatever they can get their hands into. They don't want to overextend and risk the wrath of Steward of Dale's cavalry. While he did lose some of it early on, he still has quite a lot left. Very healthy force, and certainly a scary thing for unprotected Arbalists to have to face on their own. Let's see what we got going on over here. It looks like an attack by potentially the wargs. Nope, it looks like the Trollguard of Gothmog. Absolutely fearless, rushing forward. There are no Lancers on the field today, so they won't be able to skewer these Trollguard if they detach themselves from the main body of the army like this. It doesn't seem like it's going to stop Captain Gervais from trying, however. And the Scouts of Eglares are going to charge their way in there against the Trollguard of Gothmog. Well, that's going to be an ugly engagement. Now, the Trollguard are probably going to get the best in this. You can see a lot of those poor scouts getting flattened. Maybe they managed to deal some HP damage to the trolls, shave off some of it. I believe they have about 6 or 7 trolls or HP per model, which makes them extremely sturdy, especially with that heavy armor and the shield. But nonetheless, oh, what do you know? They managed to kill a couple of them right off the charge. That is impressive indeed. That's some luck right there. Meanwhile, in the center, Angband has marshaled their full strength, and they are beginning to walk forward. Massed ranks beginning to approach that Philothrum front line. Captain Gervais trying to give him what hell he can, firing into probably the Wretches, I would think. Maybe trying to thin out some of the numbers. Oh no, he's definitely going after the Arbalists, which is a great plan. The Arbalists are a huge leg up. The Arbalists and the Halberds are 2 of the most important units in the Angband mid-tier roster, and they are taking some pretty severe losses here from Rex's forces. He's going to pull back his marksmen now behind his lines. Looks like he's got 4 of them in total. Wow, I thought he only had 3. That's a really solid front line. They'll whip out 2-handed swords once they run out of ammunition, and they make fairly decent, if a little bit unsuited, shock troops. Meanwhile, over on this side, Artorias taking pot shots here at some of the warriors of Eglares from the looks of things. Ah, he's going after the Erain Ephedun, trying to weaken the bodyguard. Not a bad idea. But his Arbalists are really too few in number relative to the size of the skirmishing forces of the elves, and so they are going to be very hard pressed here indeed. And Artorias is not going to be able to sit back and skirmish for too much longer, and these Arbalists here are already starting to take some pretty substantial losses in the face of that accurate elven bowfire. Artorias moving forward, a general charge here from his main line, and this is where it gets ugly, my friends. Some of the Marines might be loading up here. Oh yes indeed, they're going to try and do what damage they can to the Legionnaires, try and thin out the numbers, the unstoppable tide of these orcs. Those Legionnaires taking it on the chin there, absorbing some of that fire at the very least. It's not going into the Halberdier, so Angband can be thankful about that. And battle is about to be joined as a general charge here goes down from the Angband army. And this is brutal. Now this is where it's going to get a little bit laggy. Missiles flying from both sides. A big volley of crossbow bolts here, ripping through the Marines of Eglarest. And the front lines are thoroughly engaged. A big commitment here of the trolls from Amar's army. He's looking to break this wing and then roll up the Falas line. This here needs to be stopped by the elves. Otherwise, this could be basically the end of the fight right away. Looks like we've got some of the best already being thrown into the gap. Ard Galen holding the line alongside the Marines of Brithambar, trying to wear down the trolls with sheer numbers. Probably a good idea. You don't want to throw your best in there. Although in the case of the Ard Galen, they are necessary to make sure this front remains stable. Wretches moving forward, they're going to have a bad time against just about anything that the Falathrun can field. But they do make up for it with numbers. They will tire these guys out, and it's just chaos here. Some of the orcs have managed to kind of get behind the elven line, and they're trying to roll it up in just a thin blue line of heavy Falas troops holding on. This is really, really dire straits. Some infantry reinforcements do need to be rushed in here as soon as possible, but Rex has a lot of skirmishers. There's only so much that he can do. Some of the wargs getting in here to try and disrupt the Marines of Eglarest, but they are spearmen, and they are backed up with some of the scouts of Eglarest. So let's swing wide back here to the other side, where things are looking decent enough for the elves of the Falas. Suitor of Dale has had to commit his marksman of the Balar early, or the marksman of Balar early. Ironshard Legionaries and Wretches pouring in here, but these guys are going to hold the line, and out come those two-handed swords. And they are certainly going to cut a bloody swath through the Ironshod legions of Angband. Trolls here from Artorias trying to smash their way through some of the light infantry, but the elves of the Falas are in sufficient numbers that it looks like they will be able to blunt this assault. And some more reinforcements coming in. Suitor of Dale. Looks like these Rangers of Brithambar are out of ammunition. Somehow they ran out really quickly. And more wretches being brought in by Artorias to try and surround the Falathrun and again roll up the line. Going for a double envelopment here as they try to break the wings and then converge on the center. In the center, it seems to go back and forth. The Nobles of Balar here lagging a little bit behind the front line. A lot of Legionnaires here and not so many Halberds. So this is where the Falathrun are doing quite well. Where in certain areas over here, the Falathrun are far, far fewer than the warriors of Angband. And wherever the Bulldogs are, of course, the elves of the Falas are struggling to hold the line. The Bulldogs are fearsome Maiar warriors, and they are massacring their way through the host of Brithambar and Eglarest. Popping back over to this side. More and more reinforcements moving in. Looks like the trolls are beginning to fall. So this section of the line could be losing steam for Angband. And indeed, the Troll Guard of Gothmog are being repulsed, albeit with heavy, heavy losses. You can see a lot of dead Falathrun on the grounds here. And there's some action in the back lines here. Scouts of Eglarest pursuing the Wolf Riders into the Ironshot Arbalest, shutting down some very important resources here from Angband. This is potentially game-shifting, especially given how the front-line fight is going for Angband right now. Those scouts are in here. They are pinned, however, by Wolf Riders, but their quality is such that they will be able to hack their way through this. The Arbalists are not amazing in melee, and the Wolf Riders are certainly outclassed by these skilled medium horsemen. There's a second unit here coming in from the rear. The scene of Arbalest is going to have a brief reprieve. They may have some time to fire a few more volleys. Over here, it's kind of hard to say. Suitor of Dale has mostly his light units here, and I believe there's some halberdiers in there as well. So the composition over here is looking like it favors Angband. And the Falathrun are just barely managing to hold on. One of the last of the Troll Guard of Gothmog here, slaying one of the warriors of Eglarest. And there's a bit of a mass push here from Artorias as he tries to get behind them, encircle this particular bit here. If he uses mass to push all the way through them back towards the front line, that would be devastating for the elves of the Falas. Mass pushes by spearmen are certainly something you need to be careful of. Wretches of Angband are not the greatest quality spearmen, and they will die very quickly in such a maneuver, but nonetheless, the Falathrun need every single body on the front line if they're going to hold back this storm. Wretches of Angband coming in from the rear, surrounding the marksmen of Baelor, and this could put a nail in the coffin for the Philothrum defense on their right wing, but we'll come back here in just a moment. Gonna pass a little bit farther down the line. The Philothrum are managing to pull it back in places, but the balance of power is kind of shifting from moment to moment between both sides. However, the Bulldogs have managed to drive a wedge between the line of the Philothrum, and if we look at the percentage here, it's fairly close. 7% difference in favor of the Elves, but that's kind of the thing you'd expect given the quality differential. Scouts of Eglaris, however, mounting a brutal charge into the rear of some of the Spear Guard. That is going to cost them, as the Spear Guard will turn around and eventually begin to clap back. And they will be able to drive only so far into that formation before the Spear Guard and the Iron Crown Maces start to pull it back. Scouts of Eglaris pulling out with pretty substantial losses, probably about 6 or 7 of them dead on the field there. And it's looking bad for the Philothrum. Angband is managing to massacre their way through the line in a few different places, although Rex has now committed his reserves. Marksmen of Baelor here beginning to staunch some of the bleeding. You can see that the Angband forces managed to balloon through the line here, but now there's a line of very angry, heavy swordsmen who are there to stop them, and there's yet more to come. There's still some marksmen of Baelor in the back here. These ones out of ammunition, so they can be safely committed to melee. These guys are well on their way, probably focusing down some of the crossbows there, eliminating these important assets, and it looks like the Philothrum managed to stop the armies of Angband on this left wing, where all of those trolls were present. But if we look at the damage, it is quite severe. But nonetheless, they've managed to hold back that tide. Rex is actually sallying forth some of his spearmen here. They're taking on a couple of Trollguard of Gothmog. Trollguard will probably cut their way through these guys with relative ease. Ooh, nasty shots there into the Scouts of Eglaris. Then we're going to see the end of that unit. And now there's really nothing to stop them, but the damage has been done. Damn, that's a lot of dead crossbowmen. There's maybe less than 100 here. I don't know if it's going to be enough to swing things back in favor, although if they get some decent shots here into the flank and really pour on the pressure, especially against the Ard Galen, they could start to turn it around perhaps just a little bit, or at least inflict a Pyrrhic victory upon the Elves. And there goes one of the Philothrum generals, slaughtered by a combination of Bulldogs and Wretches of Angband. And it seems quite dire here for the Philothrum. There are a few places where the reserves have been committed, and that they will certainly start to stabilize the situation. Over here, the Philothrum are kind of winning, but it's hard to tell as they push further forward. They will expose themselves to encirclement. And speaking of nasty partial encirclement here, as the Bulldogs drive against the flank and rear, the Ard Galen going toe-to-toe with these fallen Maiar spirits from the beginning of creation. Certainly nothing to be underestimated, but the Ard Galen are mighty warriors in their own right, some of the best that the Philothrum have in their roster. But it seems like the Philothrum ultimately are pulling ahead in a few places. They managed to break through the Angband lines, and the Angband forces are actually being encircled in turn. So while they encircle the Philothrum here and drive against their host from their left flank, over here on the Philothrum right, they are managing to do the same thing to the warriors of Angband. On the front lines, the Mariners of Arendelle have taken severe losses. Most of their number have fallen, about 3/4 of them. And still the Angband forces are in reasonably good condition, but down here, surprisingly enough, I don't know how they managed to do it, but the Philothrum, just through sheer courage and determination, have managed to turn things around on Angband. This is looking like an ugly situation. This Halberdier now getting charged down by a small handful of remaining horsemen, and the Philothrum are overrunning the Angband positions. There are places where the orcs have managed to break through, right here especially, where that surround was affected by Artorias, and then over here on their wing, they've got their Bulldogs who are present as well. Really gives you a good sense, I think, of how Angband works. They have a few very key units and a lot of chaff with some heavy armor. And they were able to leverage that strength here against the Philothrum of Steward of Dale. But it is not nearly over. A staunch line of spears forming up alongside the remnants of the Philothrum heavy and medium infantry. They're going to charge in here, gobble up what remains of these Halberdiers, and then take on the remnants of Artorias' army. More cavalry charges here, as isolated group of Guardians of the Iron Crown is relentlessly harried by those swift Philothrim horsemen. They managed to hack their way through what's left of the elves. They're going to move to rejoin and actually attack the elves of the Follows here from the rear. They are not in sufficient numbers, and of course there are the cavalry here to contend with, but these guys are not in sufficient numbers in order to be able to pose a substantial threat, I think, to the Philothrim. That being said, nobody likes to get attacked from the rear by big, scary iron maces like that, and some of the elves are going to fall in due course. Scouts of Eglarest going for another cheeky charge here. And these Spear Guard of the Iron Crown are in trouble. Angband does not respond well to morale shocks. And this might be exactly what the Doctor ordered, to send these orcs fleeing back to the Iron Mountains. But it looks like for now, at least, the Spear Guard are going to be able to hold on. And they are winning in certain places. Looks like Rex has actually managed to break through here, and there's an isolated, but still fairly strong pocket of Angband infantry who are smashing their way through his lines. But now that his troops have managed to get in behind them, I think we're going to start to see the tide begin to turn a little bit. Unless I'm mistaken, that would be the Arain Ephedun on the horizon. And they're going to smash into the rear of the Iron Crown. And this is where things are going to start to get ugly for them. There are some javelins left, it looks like. A very small unit of Marines of Eglarest. So you got some Arbalists here who are being chased down by a small number of infantry. But that's really a sideshow. One of the Angband generals just died. It wasn't this general, but I think it might have been the forces of Artorius. Yeah, we're going to go here and you're going to see them break off. The Bulldogs, however, know no fear. And they will fight to the very end for the cause of their master, the Dark Lord Morgoth. The Bulldogs are being fairly swiftly defeated by the nobles of Baelor, and Steward of Dale is bloodied and beaten, but not broken, and the Philothrim still stand here on their right wing. Small pockets of Angband resistance remain. There are not many of the Elves of the Sea that are still standing. Most of them have been dead, or have been killed rather, or wounded. It's a very tightly contested match here, 7% difference. And these Guardians of the Iron Crown, they're actually pushing farther and harder than I would have expected they'd be able to against the Philothrim. And we might actually see the Spear Guard and the Bulldogs who are steadying them begin to squeeze this infantry between their two infantry bodies. We could see a minor victory here for the Orcs of Angband. Is it ultimately going to make a difference? It's hard to say. There are some reserve units nearby. And look at that, the ground is just choked with corpses from both sides. An absolute slaughter. Angband's still holding on. But again, they are encircled over here, and it's starting to take its toll. The Orcs have turned around and formed a second line to meet the assault of the Arain Ephedun and the Aran Kirlim and whatever troops that they could still muster and throw against the heavily armored Orcs of Angband, but there's only so much that they can do. Slowly but surely they are being beaten down. Some routers here, Ironshot Ravagers. This is looking pretty rough. The Philothrim, 85% killed and wounded. What we got going on over here? This is one of the last few pockets of Angband resistance, and they are pushing the elves hard. Let's go ahead, fast forward to here just a little bit. And we're going to start to see some of the reinforcements here from Steward of Dale making their way back up the hill and towards the fray indeed. So these guys better hurry. If these Orcs are going to be able to crush the Philothrim here, it's going to have to happen soon. And they are making steady progress in that regard. And the Philothrim are being squeezed. Steward of Dale on his way, but whether or not he makes it there in time to save his brethren remains to be seen. Over here, it's starting to look like the writing on the wall is that Angband has lost this fight. We got some breaking here from the Spear Guard. These units beginning to lose heart. And they're going to rout actually right through the enemy. And this is looking like a solid win for the Philothrim. Not exactly, finger quotes, historically accurate. However, damned entertaining. It is surprising that the Philothrim managed to hold on against those immense numbers. There was a lot that the Angband forces had going for them. But they deployed well. And the Angband forces were unfortunately not able to get all of the favorable engagements that they needed. There's a few places where their halberdiers were present where there were no Philothrum polearms. That gave them the advantage, especially over on Artorias' side. That's probably how he managed to break through Steward of Dale's defensive lines. However, elven quality has shined through. There are not many of the elves left. Of the, I suppose, 4,500 that came to the battlefield today, there's maybe a few hundred remaining. And now these Angband forces that were surrounding and massacring the Elves of the Falas, they managed to complete their bloody work, but unfortunately for them, in turn, they will be surrounded by victorious reinforcements who are converging on their position. And this is basically it here. The Bulldogs, I think, are going to be the last ones to hold the line. They will fight to the finish. The Bulls of Baal are here walking, or rather marching into position. And the last of the Elite Spear Guard and the Guardian units are beginning to flee, while the Bulldogs again, utterly fearless in the face of defeat. It's looking like a 97 to 88% victory. That was a very dearly bought victory here for the Elves of the Falas, and Morgoth is going to, in this hypothetical alternate reality of Beleriand, lose his western army to a crushing defeat inflicted by Círdan and his brave warriors. That's looking like that's the end of the Bulldogs. Just a disgusting slaughter here on both sides. You can see the Orcs managing to surround the Elves in a few places, and in other places being surrounded and turned. And here, this is the main thrust, I think, of Amar's army. He was hoping that those trolls... And there goes the Bulldog General. That's basically it here. But these troll units, I think, were intended to be able to break this wing, and then be able to come in from the rear and roll up this line. But the Philothrum managed to stop them in their tracks, and that potentially won them the game. This was potentially a game-winning engagement. The loss of 3 units of Troll Guard of Gothmog. They certainly needed some extra infantry in there to help them, I think. I'm not seeing too many Orc bodies on the ground there. It looks like it was mostly Troll Guard. Troll Guard are good, but they are the spearhead to an assault. They definitely need support, and even when you have 3 of them, you can see that at play. They need infantry in order to support them and help to give them that follow-through that they need. Now, the Philothrum, roving in bands, no particular order any longer, hunting down the Orcish survivors, making sure that nothing more than a handful of leaves will make its way back to the Iron Citadel in the north. And that's going to be a solid victory for the Philothrum. Fantastic work there. Final percentage here. It's a 10% difference. Very impressive victory for both Steward of Dale and Captain Rex. Well played to all the players involved here. I hope you guys have enjoyed this small documentary on some of the exciting events that took place during the First Age. Next episode is going to include a battle between the forces of Doriath and the Green Elves of Sirion, and they will again be taking on some very powerful Angband armies in a historical scenario. My name is Jordan, also known as G-Monster. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you are interested in Silmarillion, make sure you check out the description of this video. I have everything that you'll need to know in order to get started and get involved with the community, and perhaps even jump in to some games like this and help us test our test build. If you guys are interested in more content of this nature, I recommend that you turn on the notification button and you subscribe to the channel. I post things pretty regularly, and I also do a lot of streams. But yeah, in any case, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever comes next. Take care, everyone.